Netflix, you got to knock it off. I I I was going to talk about Jupiter's Legacy, which I enjoyed the first season of, and was looking forward to the second season, but there won't be a second season because it got canceled. Just like Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, and the OA. I'm really getting tired of this Netflix, and I know I'm not the only one out there. Now Netflix is a business, and at the end of the day, the bottom line is they have to make money to stay solvent to continue to provide the service and the product that they do, and I understand that. And sometimes things go on the chopping block that you just can't fathom why they went on the chopping block, and and that's frustrating enough. Okay, but I can understand that. But I really wish Netflix would change the way they structure, the way they approach some of this stuff. Now, I understand that the current model is you make a season. If it does well, you make another season. If that does well, you make another season. If that does well, you make another season. It makes sense. But I would honestly rather have, instead of 3 seasons, I would have maybe one extended limited series that gave me the whole story, rather than not knowing whether there's going to be another season. Honestly, as a consumer, I would much prefer that. I'm really getting frustrated with Netflix over this because they keep canceling shows that I really want to see. And I was really upset. And I watched Age of Resistance and didn't even realize, a while after it came out, because I just didn't have the time to watch it, it had already been canceled, and I didn't even know it. Man, I got into it. I'm like, oh, this is great. And I loved it. And then I find out that it was like canceled 12 months earlier. Honestly, I don't know that I would have watched it had I known that. Because and it all comes down, now I am old enough that I watched Firefly when it first came out. Now, I was not a full-fledged brown coat, but I definitely enjoyed the series. And when it got canceled after that one season, yeah, I was upset like everybody else. Now, it lingered with me too. Now, not as deep and long as a lot of the other serious fans, because I enjoyed it, but I wasn't going to let it ruin my, other stuff. But that still sticks with me. And then, then I started watching the OA on Netflix, and I absolutely fell in love with that series and possibly the lead actress. But that's beside that. We're not going to go into that here. But the OA was such a phenomenal show. It was so different, so on another level. I was just gushing about it to anybody who would listen. They go, "Come on, you got to watch this show. It's awesome. It's on another level. It's so trippy. It's so thought-provoking. It's so enjoyable. It's just hitting on all cylinders. Even though it's not for everybody, and it's not. But then the second season came out, and I'm like, it just got even crazier. And it reinvented itself. And I love a show that can stay good and reinvent itself. Like The Good Place. And if you haven't seen The Good Place, go watch The Good Place. Now, there's a show that season 1 was completely different than season 2. And then season 3 was completely different than the first 2 seasons. You had the same characters, the same actors, the same basic setup, but the circumstances were different, and it reinvented itself season after season. And by the end of the 4th season, it was such a different kind of show, but it was still a good show, a great show, a fantastic show, a show that I will recommend to anybody, and I will probably recommend it 80 years from now. If I'm still alive, I'll still probably recommend it as being a fantastic show. And on that same way, that's the direction the OA was going. You had season 1, which is very low key, and then season 2, it became more of a techno thriller. But that was the great thing about the basic premise of the show, and what it's about is it set up a mechanism how it could reinvent itself after each season and still stay fresh and new and original, and you can still stay invested in those characters season after season. And then they canceled it. I'm still bitter. And I mean that. I really am bitter. And that was when I started to really get angry at Netflix. And then it happened. I mean, I mentioned Age of Resistance and Jupiter's Legacy, and those are just two other examples. There are examples beyond that I could dig deep for, but I'm not going to. And I understand if you buy one season, you put in X amount of money, you get a good response, and you say, yeah, we can justify another season. And we can keep doing this as long as we can. The problem is when you get a show that doesn't know if it's going to end, it doesn't give you the whole story. And that's really frustrating as somebody who gets really invested in the characters and the story and the plot line, and especially when there's like now Age of Resistance, you knew how it was going to end. I mean, in general, if you didn't know the specifics, because we all watched The Dark Crystal. But the OA was, oh wow, the mystery was just starting to unfold in force, and I'm still really disappointed that I could not see, not only not experience how it was going to go, and continue to go on that journey with those characters, but just in general not know what was going to happen. Even if I get to watch a 20-minute interview with Brit Marlin and she goes, yeah, okay, well this is how season 3 was going to play out, and then we knew how season 4 and 5 were going to play out, and this was kind of at least on some level that would be cathartic. But I don't even get that at this point, because a lot of these writers and producers, when something gets canceled like that, they kind of go, all right, well that's that. Now there have been a couple examples where they've been able to pick up other projects. Babylon 5 and Straczynski, there was just Babylon 5 Crusade, which of course sunk real quick because of corporate executive interference, and Straczynski walked away. But there were other attempts to kind of reboot the Babylon 5 franchise, not reboot it in rewriting it from the beginning, but reinvigorating it and picking up from a plot point later in the series and continuing with that. There were a couple attempts made at that, and there were other things within the franchise that are kind of canon. Like there was a miniature tabletop game for Babylon 5 Battles, and I know a lot of that information that came out about the different races and the way their ships worked and some of the culture behind those races became canon, even though the series itself didn't fully have a chance to explain some of that. Other writers kind of picked it up, and Straczynski gave it his blessing. So sometimes franchises can live on in other ways. But nowadays, this almost disposable culture of put it out there, nope, okay, pitch it, didn't make enough money. Put it out there, nope, pitch it, didn't make enough money. Put it out there, all right, this one made enough money for a season 2, season 3, okay, season 4, nope, not enough money, pitch it. That's getting really, really frustrating. And like I said, if you went to a writer, now I know it doesn't always work this way, but if like Straczynski wrote Babylon 5 to be 5 seasons long, and he had an overall arc in his mind, and he knew kind of where it was going to end more or less when he started writing episode 1, and then they got to the point where when they got to the end of season 4, they weren't sure whether they were going to be renewed for season 5, because they were still in talks to be picked up by Ted Turner over at, I think it was TNT. And so they had a point where it's like, okay, we have 2 different episodes we can film here for the finale of season 4. We can film this one, which will set up season 5, or we can film this one, which will give a much more kind of finalized kind of conclusion to the overall saga of Babylon 5, and wrap things up in a broad sense for some of the major storylines. And it came down to the wire, and finally they kind of said, okay, we're going to try and finish this for the fans. So we're going to do the one that closes up a lot of the storylines. Well, they ended up being renewed for season 5 and picked up by TNT, or was it TNT or TBS? I honestly don't remember. But I know Ted Turner, who was a fan of the show, stepped in and said, no, I want to bring you on board and I want to see Babylon 5 completed because I personally enjoy the show. Writers don't even have that opportunity a lot anymore because of how things work nowadays. That was kind of odd, I think, and maybe a relic now of how things used to be, where a writer might be able to go, okay, let's give the fans some closure. And that's what I would prefer. I would prefer to be able to get some closure. And I know some shows write their seasons to be a little more encapsulated with some threads dangling that kind of pick up with the season 2 and keep going. Some of the Marvel series are kind of like that, like Daredevil and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and of course Iron Fist were kind of like that, where if they did abruptly end, you still had enough closure to the plot lines going on in that season that you were probably okay. It sucked that it got canceled because you felt there was more going on, especially with Luke Cage, and I love Luke Cage. That's my favorite out of all 4. And I really wanted to see how things were going to go when he took over the nightclub, because you could tell he was marching down a dark path, and I really wanted to see that. I wanted to see that play out. But at the end, but still, the show got canceled because of issues between Marvel and Netflix, and I still felt like, okay, I have enough closure there. That's the end of a chapter. I won't ever get to read the next chapter, but I don't feel empty like I did with the OA. And so I would rather see Netflix approach writers and stuff and say, look, I'd rather see limited series, to be honest. And even if that means condensing a show and some of the sub-elements or subplots of the show down to be able to give the fans more of a complete closure. For like I said, let's say you've got 3 seasons, you go to them and you've written 3 seasons and each one is 12 episodes. Netflix goes, okay, here's the thing. We can pick up season 1, see how it goes, then pick up season 2, then hopefully pick up season 3 if everything goes well. Or you can go back and you can give us 18 episodes that tell the whole story. And we're willing to invest in that because we think your product's good. And this way we're not on the hook to kind of keep renewing it. And this way the fans get a complete story and they won't get pissed off at us and possibly start canceling their subscriptions, which I'm getting close to doing. And we won't take as much flack. Now some writers will do that, some won't. Some will understand why that's being asked of them. Some will say, no, my project is my project and it needs all 36 episodes. That's fine. I defend the rights of I defend the rights of the creator. And if you really think it's going to take 36 episodes to tell your story properly, that's okay. And you want to stand by that, and you would rather hold out to see if a show will be picked up for the full 36, or maybe find another medium. I understand that, and that's your decision. But on the other hand, I know there are some that go, okay, there are some subplots that I would like to see resolved, but on the other hand, I understand what you're saying, and it's easier for you and me if I write it down to 18 episodes and we do a limited series and there's completion. And then maybe we can do a second limited series in a couple years if we think there's enough fans out there for it. And we can pick up with some of those subplots, or maybe kind of go back and follow a separate storyline, parallel to what was going on in the first series. So as a consumer, I would rather see something like that start to pop up. I'm just one person, and let's face it, the only thing that, as far as I can tell, the only real feedback Netflix cares about is how many subscriptions they have. Now again, they're a business. They need to stay solvent. Okay, and if they think something's a bad investment, they have every right to say, I'm sorry, we're not doing another season. Okay, yeah, you may have 50,000 signatures, but dude, we needed way more numbers than that in the original viewership to make it worth our while. And that sucks for the artists who are making it, the actors, the writers, the producers, everybody, the sound effects, the camera people. It sucks for them. It must really suck to never know whether you're going to be able to, whether, all right, well, I'm not going to be working for another year. Or, that I thought I was going to work for a whole nother year on this next season, and now it's gone. I mean, that must really suck. I've always had more stable jobs than that, so I can't imagine. But yeah, I Netflix, please do something different with your seasonal structure. Please. I mean, I don't know, and I only talked about some possibilities. I know there are probably other possibilities too. But I mean, I don't know how else to give Netflix feedback on this. There are probably petitions out there or whatever. I mean, they don't. But do their guys come and read Reddit posts about people bitching? Will they come and watch a video like this? Probably not. Probably not, because I'm just one voice amongst many, and maybe I'm miscalculating, and there aren't as many people out there who give a shit, and they're like, okay, well, that was a cool 2 seasons, but after that I don't care, because they're not going to review. I wasn't that invested in the show. It just is frustrating. It's really frustrating. I mean, I don't even, and they still have some of these older series in their catalog, like Age of Resistance, but I'm never going to go back and watch it again. I would have watched it again if I knew a second season was coming up. And I felt bad for my girlfriend who really wanted to watch it. I'm like, okay, it's been canceled. Yeah, but I really want to watch it. She fell in love with it. And I think rightfully so, because they did an amazing job with it. Way better than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be very boring. But it turned out it was way more Game of Thrones than I expected. But yeah, please, Netflix, if anybody has any answer on how to kind of work, effects of change, and how they handle this, or at least say, look, we would like to see something different. We would like a little more surety of our secondary seasons and third seasons and whatnot. Great. I'll take a suggestion. I'll sign a petition. I'll start a movement or something. Whatever it can reasonably take. So yeah, that's my rant on why I'm frustrated with Netflix. Comment away. Wintermute signing off.